is to start with a well-regulated nervous system. Let me tell you what that's all about, okay? So when you talk about stepping into a New Year's resolution, what that usually is all about is doing something that you haven't done before. It's usually challenging. It's usually considered effortful. It's usually considered like, okay, got to do this. We're going to do this now, because if it wasn't, you probably would have already done it. Let's face it. The reason why it's hard is because your nervous system is built for the life you've been living, not the life that you're wanting to live. And so when you step into the gym and you step into doing CrossFit or yoga, if you haven't done that before, that new diet or that new art, picking up an instrument, whatever the thing is that you are resolving to change with your well-being, with your quality of life, whatever that is, you've got your whole nervous system working against you. Now here's the thing. When your system is well regulated, it's in a much more adaptable state and much more willing to do and to change for the new. The reason why is because it prioritizes things that are seen as a threat. And we live in a world filled with stress. We're surrounded by stress everywhere we go. And what our nervous system interprets that as is a battlefield. These are countless micro movements or micro moments that are going to try and reduce our life, to take things away from us, and to essentially make life harder. So our nervous system is built with all of this resistance. And until that resistance goes away, it's really hard to notice it. So any of you who've stepped into meditation, you have met your resistance. But to get it to actually fall away on its own is a part of having a regulated nervous system. What does it mean to have a regulated nervous system? It's when you show your nervous system that it's actually safe. But you have to speak the language of the nervous system. So when you go out, somebody says it's safe to go outside, and you open the door and immediately you hear a bomb go off or a gunshot. You're going to shut that door and you're not going to listen to anybody else tell you that it's safe outside, because you know it's not. You've already tried it. So how do you get a nervous system that's been fooled countless times into being armored, into being protected, into resistance, that it's actually safe? So some of you that are listening to this are thinking, yeah, I've got anxiety and I want to hear what Dr. Dave's got to say about this. But a lot of you don't realize, because you don't experience anxiety, because you do have some level of control over how you interact with the world, you don't realize how much your nervous system is actually dysregulated. Let me put it into this terms. There's been a time in your life, very likely, unless you had a really awful childhood, there was a time when you were younger when everything was effortless. When you just did what you want and you felt good right from the moment you woke up and you are ready to spring into action. And very likely today as an adult, you feel tired a lot. You feel fatigued a lot. You have things that you want to do, but when you actually have time to do them, you're like, I'd rather not. You have things that you want to do, but when you go to do them, they seem harder, like it's too much of an effort to actually adapt to it. You have things that you want to do, but no matter how hard you try to learn it, it doesn't seem possible. You have people at work that are out competing you, but you're trying to do it. You might even find yourself wanting more, but you can't get up the energy or the willpower to do it. When you are not able to do what you want, to actualize yourself, that is a form of nervous system dysregulation. And somebody who's in the behavioral sciences area might chalk that up to, well, you just haven't learned how to self-motivate. Well, really what it is that your nervous system has learned how to act and how to be in the world without connecting to self-motivation. And that is a form of dysregulation. The bottom line is if that you want to be in a state of joy, or in a state of focus, or in a state of energy, you want that, aside from physical limitation like no sleep, no food, or you've been up for 24 hours, aside from those things, you should be able to step into that almost every single time. And if you can't, that is a form of nervous system dysregulation. Here's the thing, there is an exponential curve to energy utilization in the body. When our body has more strategies and more of the structure of the neural skeleton is actually devoted towards survival. What that means is that we burn a lot of energy on very little output. All of our energy is focused in the brainstem, but on the sympathetic side of the brainstem, which means the energy can't get balanced enough, which is what will happen if it's more parasympathetically based. There's a balance between those two that allows energy to move up into the limbic system, which is your emotional navigational system. And that's not just about how reactive you are, or how angry you get, or frustrated, or how you're not able to control your emotions. That also has to do with motivation, because emotion is all about what moves you towards something or pulls you back from something. It's not just about the emotion itself, it's about the channeling and the forming of the emotion into the things that you want. It's also about the recognition when that emotion isn't lining up with your desire, to be able to feel into why that is, because there is a reason. But most of us, we live in such dysregulation, and we actually see it mirrored in the world in such a way that we don't recognize it as wrong. It feels very normal. It feels very natural. So, nervous system dysregulation, when we have that, actually keeps the energy from moving up into the limbic system, and then the cortical brain, and then the prefrontal cortex, which has a lot of amazing qualities to it. That is the area that we use to really focus on what we're wanting, to be able to critically think and decipher and move through in a very intelligent way the abstract information of our environment. It's also the area, the left side, that lights up when we've experienced profound states of oneness and interconnectedness of life. And so if you feel devoid of that, even if that feels like a foreign concept or a woo-woo-y concept, chances are your system isn't being able to energize in the prefrontal cortex. This is the area that isn't even developed until our mid-20s. So if you think about, teenage brain and moving into through the 20s into an adult brain, where we actually have a different level of connection with ourself and the world, that all has to do with that prefrontal cortex. So when you're thinking about stepping into the gym, or you're thinking about reading more, or learning on a subject, taking one of those master classes, or going back to school, or maybe you want to be much better at relationships in your life, or maybe you want to pick up a new instrument, or maybe you want to go for that extra promotion at your job, or step into being an entrepreneur on your own. All of those things take a new level of energy that needs to exceed the life that you've already built. How do you do that? Well, aside from taking a massive amount of stimulants, hello Adderall, which is a huge amount of the population, aside from that, if you regulate your nervous system, you actually get it to stop burning all of your energy on tension, on restriction, on resistance, on judgment, on focusing on things of the past, on developing stories and getting in story loops. Bruce Lipton talks about the brain. 90% of it is actually stuck on a loop. How do you escape that? If you regulate the nervous system, the energy naturally floods the neural structure that you have, and you have more available to you. When you step into the gym then, and you step into those new activities at those points, not a bad idea to aid it with some nootropics or some great supplements. When you do that, you actually are able to access the neuroplasticity of your brain and expand the bandwidth. What does that mean? It literally means that the structure of how many connections you have can expand exponentially. And when you do that, that energy that your system's developed can actually flood that area. So you actually can develop more connection in your higher brain than you've ever had before. You can actually develop more energy and more connection to what motivates you to step into your life. And so when you step into anything that regulates your nervous system better, okay, and network spinal, my personal favorite, it's the reason why I do it, because it has absolutely changed my life and it changes people's lives every single day. What this does is it gives you more access to you, and it kind of takes you back from being stuck in all of this reactivity of the world, where you can step out of it and go, oh, I can do this differently. And if you meditate, if you do yoga, if you do CrossFit, if you do any of the things that massively support your well-being, what network spinal does is it doesn't replace those things. It magnifies the ability to integrate that into your being and to gain the gifts, the massive gifts that those decisions, those activities, those roles actually have within them. So if you're really looking for the nervous system hack, if you're really looking for the way to step out of the patterns that you've been in, network spinal care is my personal top choice. But anything that regulates your nervous system to a higher level is what you're looking for. So if you want the easy button, if you want to read that list of 2024, goals and go, you know what? Piece of cake, I'm doing this, and mean it and believe it, regulate your nervous system first.